So we'll start with some brief introductions. Myself and my colleagues will review the purpose of the enrollment tool, the relationship between the enrollment tool and the service tool, go a little bit into the purpose of the service tool as well, so you all have that context. And then we'll move into the live demonstration of the tool where I'll share my screen and talk through all the steps of enrollment, from collecting household roster information to obtaining consent in the different scenarios, so in person, remote, and on paper. And then we'll go into the baseline information form, baseline survey, and random assignment procedures. We'll finish off with talking about how to continue pause enrollments and get consent from other adults. And then finally, I'll switch back to the PowerPoint presentation to talk more about using paper forms and additional resources for the enrollment tool. And hopefully we'll leave some time for questions at the end, but I'll pause for questions throughout, and you can feel free to just jump in with questions or put them in the chat. And my colleagues, Danny Gubitz and Zoe Greenwood, are on the line and can monitor that as well. So feel free to just interrupt me if you have any questions. So get started. My name is Will Yetfin. I have been with APT for about 4 years now and working closely with Danny and HUD and First Pick the last over a year now on both the enrollment and service tools. So we're excited that the launch dates are finally coming up and we can show you this neat tool. So I'll start with just the purpose of the enrollment tool. We see it.
Well, can we just since we can't see who's in the room, can you just
Yeah,
each just tell us who's in the room there at Cuyahoga?
Yeah.
So we have just everybody's names. We have Jane Nichols, Michael Lepley, Amanda Spikes, Alexandra Tyler, Mary Ann Andrews, Victor Itza.
Great. Thank you.
And you all will be conducting enrollments for Cuyahoga.
Yes, with the exception of Michael. He is at SHC, but just getting a sense of the tool, so he does not have access to it. But we'll be part of the service tool training next week.
Oh, okay, great.
And this is Bethany. Obviously, I'm here.
Bethany.
Okay.
Your email address.
Thanks for that introduction. Great. So the purposes of the enrollment tool primarily is to support you all, PHA staff, through the main phases of the enrollment process. So from collecting household roster, obtaining consent, permission for at least one child in the household to participate in the study, collecting the information requested on the baseline information form, administering the baseline survey, and then conducting random assignments. So that last bullet explains that the tool has a built-in random assignment program that assigns enrolled families into either the CMRS treatment group or the control business as usual group. And the tool also allows users to stop and continue enrollments if necessary. So we'll talk more about tracking and pending and completed enrollments later, but those are the main purposes of the enrollment tool. And what you need to use the enrollment tool, so you'll need some sort of work device, whether it be a desktop computer, a laptop, or maybe a tablet. Probably easier to do it on a desktop or laptop, but if your agency uses tablets or other things, that can work as well. We recommend using Google Chrome or Microsoft Edge as your internet browser when using the enrollment tool, because that's the browsers that are most compatible with the programming of the tool. You'll need consistent internet connection. We'll talk about cases where families don't have consistent internet connection, what that means. But to do anything in the tool, you'll need internet connection. You'll need a cell phone for two-factor authentication by text or authenticator app to log into the tool. However, you can also use an email address to receive that two-factor code if necessary. And then two important pieces of or documents to reference while using the tool, one being the Enrollment Tool User Guide, which I'll talk more about, and the large PHA Recruitment and Enrollment Manual. So, thinking about the relationship between the enrollment and service tools. So the enrollment tool shares some specific pieces of information with the service tool, so the mobility services staff can see the head of household's email, cell phone, and address at enrollment, as well as the names and ages of children and other adult household members who consent into the study. And new households who have been randomly assigned to the CMRS group are automatically transferred to the service tool. On the bottom left, you'll see a screenshot of the service tool where the head of household, June 22, has been assigned to CMRS and is starting in that phase 1 study enrollment. So it's automatically transferred. Families are automatically transferred to the service tool when they're assigned into the CMRS group. I'll just touch on the purpose of the service tool as well. So the service tool is built to provide, help support the provision of services for families through all the phases of CMRS. So that's scheduling check-ins with families and property owners, entering and managing information about the family search process, and entering information on new units and tracking the availability of units. It's also a case management tool, so it allows users to assign families to different mobility services staff in order to manage those caseloads. And finally, it plays an important role in data collection for the CCD evaluation. So it supplies our study team with data to help understand to what extent mobility services were provided to families and which mobility services are most important for helping those families with vouchers access opportunity areas. Any questions on any of the information I've covered thus far? Okay. Great. So now we will move into our live demonstration. So we're going to pull up the service tool. Again, this training is being recorded, so you can reference it later. If we're going too fast, feel free to ask me to slow down. I'll try to go slow and explain exactly what I'm doing. So this is the home page, the login page of the service tool. I've given all of you, or everyone who will be conducting enrollments, access to the test site. You can see it says Community Choice Demonstration Test. And once the program launches for Cuyahoga, you'll be given access to the real site where you'll conduct enrollments with actual households, and you'll no longer have access to this test site. So this test site right now, you can put in, enroll fictional families into the site just to practice. So once you set up your
Well,
account,
do you mind
yeah.
zooming in a little bit? And I know that might
zooming in.
zoom out
No, that should be
on how things look, but
I think it should be fine. Is that better?
that's better. Yes, thank
Okay,
you.
thanks. Yeah, no problem. So once you create your account, if there are any questions about that, you can let me know, but it's spelled out in the user guide. We'll click login and get that two-factor authentication code to enter. Enter that, and this is the home page of the tool. So for our demonstration today, I have assigned myself to Cuyahoga CMHA, so I will only be able to view and enroll families into CMHA, and that's the permissions you will also receive. So this homepage has two buttons. This green button, enroll a new household, brings you immediately to the first page of the household roster to enroll a new household, and the blue continue enrollments button brings you to the household enrollments table, which I'll show in a second. And then this account button just allows you to change your two-factor settings or log out of the tool. So clicking on continue enrollments, we see our household enrollments table. This is the main hub of the tool. It lists all, in the pending tab, it lists all families who are currently, have in progress enrollments, so not completed enrollments. You can see that there's a column for the head of household, which you can sort alphabetically, column for the enrollment step, which you can sort. So by, if they're in the consent stage, baseline information form, baseline survey, you can sort there, the date the enrollment was last touched or updated, what user last edited that enrollment, and the PHA name, which will all be the same for you, and options to continue enrollment. You can also use this search bar to search for the head of household name, or say you're looking for folks in the baseline survey stage, you can search by enrollment step as well. And the completed tab shows all families who have been who have gone through random assignment. So you can see that the step is enrollment completed, and it shows the random assignment group, either CMRS or control. And then the consent status, I'll talk more later, but completed means all adults in the household have completed a consent form, and pending means there are some other adults in the household who have yet to complete a consent form. And then I'll talk about these inactive, soft deleted, and withdrawn tabs later in the demo, but pending and completed is what you'll mostly be working in. So before I start a new enrollment, does anyone have any questions about this table? Okay. Great. So when you're ready to enroll in new households, you can click on the Enroll a New Household button, and you're brought to the first page of the household roster. So you can read this introduction text, and this first page of the household roster is mostly information you have from your records, but you want to verify with the head of households as well, just to make sure everything is correct. So the PHA name, it'll automatically be CMHA, because you're only allowed to enroll families into your own PHA. You'll select waitlist, family, or existing voucher holder, and then start filling out just the basic information about the head of household. So I'm just gonna.
Should we be filling out along with you, like filling our own out?
You don't have to. If you want to follow along in that way, you can. If that's distracting and you just want to pay attention, you can do that. You'll have practice. I understand you'll have time to practice this afterwards, so up to you. So I'll just making up a person here, Bob Hope, filling out. So some of these fields are required, such as date of birth, and either social security number, or if they don't have SSN, the alien registration number. And some fields aren't required, like middle name or suffix. And you'll see if you try to move on, if you try to save and continue without filling out all the required fields, the tool will not let you do that. So entering valid 9-digit social security number, PHA household ID number, that's your internal PHA number for the client. And finally, entering how many children age 17 or younger are in the household. So that's a question you'll ask to the head of households. Say 2 and click Save and Continue. And now we're able to add information about the children to the head of household. So if you made a mistake in the number of children, you can click this button to edit the number of children. But once that number is correct, you can click this add a child button and fill out information about the children in the household. And whether the head of household is the parent or guardian of this child. So, well, I want to add, Danny, should we kind of explain how the nuances around this and how it's going to change, or?
I think it's a little bit too in the weeds.
Okay.
Yeah.
There'll be additional guidance about what happens when the head of household, like the PHA head of household, isn't the same person as the parent or guardian. But right now, we're just living in the world where you're asking the head of households, are you the parent or guardian of this child? If they say yes, great. That child will be put on the parent permission form. If not, the child will not be put on the parent permission form because the head of household is not able to provide permission. So I'll say yes for Linda and Anthony Hope. Okay, and once that information is complete, we can click save and continue.
And Will, I know like this change is forthcoming and you're all still working out what this will look like. But just a question on how it functions currently. So if you say yes, you have permission to enroll a child, but then later in the baseline information form you indicate that one of the children is a grandchild of yours, will that, or I guess changing my question, you say that you're not the guardian, but then you indicate you're a grandparent. Will that kind of spark a change in whether or not a consent form for that child appears or not? Or is only the roster going to lead to an informed consent form being, the permission form being available later on?
Question. It's the roster, because after this household roster, then the consent happens, and after that, the baseline information form. So none of the questions in the baseline information form affect what shows up in the consent form. So let me, as the tool is now, again, there's going to be some additional guidance, but for the sake of example, I'll say like Anthony Hope is not the parent, or the head of household is not the parent or guardian of Anthony, and you'll see that in the parent guardian permission form, only Linda will appear. So I'll just do that for an example. So
it's that exact situation where the head of the household is the grandparent, so that they are not the parent or guardian, if they are not the parent or guardian for the children. But let's say their adult child is living in the household, and it's the adult child who's the parent or guardian, but the adult child is not the head of the household, for the voucher program. That's a situation that we're going to be providing more guidance.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So then you answer how many people are age 18 or over, and fill out similarly basic information about those adults in the households. Okay, and clicking save and continue here brings you to additional questions on the household roster. So primary or main language that the family speaks at home, language they prefer for the consent form and baseline survey. These are all of the languages that HUD has translated these documents for, so this can be useful in in providing those documents. But ideally, if consent is going to be provided in a language other than English or Spanish, you would find that out before the individual enrollment session actually begins, in order to either get an interpreter or mail those forms in the language of choice beforehand. And there's information on that in the PHA recruitment and enrollment manual. But we'll just select English for this example. And then you ask the head of household for their cell phone number and email. So if the head of household provides both the cell phone number and email, those are the contact methods that the consent forms will be sent if the enrollments are done remotely. And it will also be the contact methods that the other adult consent forms will be sent if done remotely. So in the tool right now, the head of household is required, you're required to either enter a phone number or email address in the tool. If the head of household doesn't have a cell phone, just enter the email. If they don't have a cell phone or email, you can enter the landline in the cell phone fields, but that means that the head of household must complete the consents and baseline survey either in person or on paper, because there's no way for the tool to send them the link. And in the rare case the head of household doesn't even have a landline, you can just put a placeholder email or phone number in order to move on with the baseline, with the enrollment. And the head of household, again, will have to complete the consents and baseline survey in person or on paper. So I'm just gonna enter a phone number, no additional number. Email address, and you can answer with the preferred method of contacts for the head of household. Clicking on Save and Continue brings you to the summary page of the household roster form, where you can see all the information that has been entered thus far. If you need to edit any of the information, you find a mistake or typo, you can click the blue edit button. That'll bring you to that section and you can edit it and then continue forward. But once you've reviewed and all the information is correct, then you can submit the household roster. And you'll be taken to the head of household informed consent. So I'll pause here. Any questions about the household roster? I did want to mention for the household roster, if the enrollment is conducted in person or remotely and an interpreter is needed, the interpreter should participate in person or by video conference, and the interpreter should have a translated version of the household roster in the language they're interpreting, and guided by the interpreter, you all, the PHA staff, will enter responses directly into the tool. So the household roster ideally is something to be completed by PHA staff and guided by the interpreter if that's required. Similarly, for the consent process, if consent forms need to be provided in a language other than English and Spanish, the interpreter will participate either in person or via video conference or phone to ensure that the head of household understands the consent form and is able to respond and sign the form accordingly. Okay, so the first decision point is the method of which the head of household consent will be taken. So this first scenario with Bob, we'll assume Bob is in person. I'll show what it looks like if you in a remote and paper scenario later on. So we'll click in person. And the head of household consent form just shows up on the screen. So the PJ staff can first read the consent form to the head of household and then allow time for the head of household to read the form at their own pace. You can see that at the top there's a drop down to toggle the languages between English and Spanish. So if the head of household refers to their primary language is Spanish or prefers the consent form in Spanish, you can switch it to Spanish. This has household ID number at the top is study generated number just to link households with consent forms. It's not something you need to remember or the household needs to remember. So to navigate through the consent form, you use the next page and previous buttons. So reading through each section, clicking on next page will bring you through the pages of the consent form. And the last page of the consent form has the statement. It shows the head of household name here, should match the head of household, and the head of household should be given the device. So whether it's on the laptop or computer screen or tablet, you'll give the head of household the device to click either yes, they agree to be a part, or no, they don't. So ideally, the head of household will complete the consent form even if they do not agree, just to so we have that record that they did not consent to the study. But if for some reason they don't want to sign the consent form, that is within their right. But if they don't want to agree to the study even after conversation, can encourage them just to complete the consent form, yes or no. In this scenario, we'll say yes, Bob agrees to be a part of the CCD study. Bob types their first and last name, dates the consent form, and draws the signature box and clicks save and continue. So now we're at the consent review screen, and you can see that the consent type head of household was given today, consent was given, and we have an option to view the PDF and also download the PDF. So PHA staff must provide head of household physical copies of each consent form signed by the family. So if it's an in-person enrollment, at the end of the enrollment session, you can print out all the consent forms that were signed and give it to the family. So you can either do that now, or I'll show you a way after the enrollment is completed to print all these forms out on the family information form. Might make sense to just do it all at the end. So you can continue to the parental permission by clicking this button and selecting the method that the parent guardian permission form will be taken. So likely it will be taken in the same method as before. So we'll click in person, since this is an in-person enrollment, and the parent guardian permission form appears, and it works the exact same way as the head of household consent. So got the language toggle, household ID number, it's the same, and next page, previous buttons. So going through the parent guardian permission form, and we can see that the statement is slightly different because it first lists the head of household name, but then it lists all the children in the household that the head of household is the parent or guardian for. So if you remember, we said Bob was the parent guardian of Linda, but not Anthony. And so that's why Linda is the only one showing up here in the consent form. So Bob.
And just to confirm, so if there were multiple children that head of household could provide permission for, they would be listed in this consent form? Or?
Yes, it's all listed in the same. So
All
Yeah.
the same.
It
Okay.
would all be here, however many children. Yeah, there's not multiple forms for each child. Good question. So they'll select yes or no for each of the children. It'll all be listed here. In order to enroll in the study, have to provide consent for at least one child.
Well,
So,
there's another question.
I'm sorry, Will, if there
Yep.
are other adult children in addition to the children who qualify the family for mobility choice, will they have a separate consent form?
yeah, so children 18 or over will
Yeah.
be included in the other adult consent form.
Okay.
So, yeah, they're just treated as other adults in the household.
They won't do it, okay, great.
Yeah, so there's no parent guardian permission form for them. They're just adults. Yeah, and so you add, even if it's an adult child for the head of household on that household roster, you don't add them to the children section. You add them to the other adult section, if you remember.
Thank you. And I can't wait, so I'm sure you covered that already.
Yep, no problem. So selecting yes for permission, typing the head of household name, again, date it and sign it. And clicking save and continue. And you'll get to this, the consent review screen again, where we can see parental consent was given, ability to view the PDF. And now you're at the point where you can add other adult consent forms. So if the other adult is present in the enrollment meeting, then you can go ahead and add the other adult consent form right then and there. However, let's say Dolores was not present in the meeting, you would just click finish consents and add that other adult consent form at a later time. And I'll show that with a different example, but for this scenario, we'll say that everyone in the household is present at the in-person enrollment meeting, so we can add the other adult consent form, select in person, and see that this is the other adult consent form. So we provide, read consent form to Dolores, provide Dolores time to read it over and get their signature. So Dolores agrees. Again, they don't have to agree in order for the head of household to enroll in the study. So I, can select no and the enrollment can still continue, but ideally we'd be able to get the consent for all the other adults in the household. So now we can see all the consents have been completed. And we're able to finish consents and move on to the baseline information form, which is going to be collected by PHA staff. So if it's in person, you're just asking the head of household for the information right there. If it's remote via phone or video conference, same thing. You're asking these questions of the head of household. So we can start with the head of household's physical address. We'll just do a random address here. As you can see, it's an autofill. So once you start typing in the address, you can select it. Saving and continue gets you to this additional contact information. So we strongly encourage you to try to get the names and contact information of people who do not live with the head of household, but will always know how to contact the head of household. This is just to help, track down the head of household if the study team is unable to get in touch with them. So there's the ability to add 3 different people and this is not required, but just strongly encouraged. For the sake of time, I won't fill this out, but these are all the fields.
And yeah, there's spaces for up to 3, but you know, having one person is a lot better than having none. So
Right.
yeah, it'd be great if at least, you know, 1 or 2 would be great. And
Yes.
3 would be even better. Yep.
Great. So save and continue. And now we're getting to the part to fill out more information about the other adults in the household. So if there are more than one other adult, they would all be listed here. And you have to click edit to add information where it says fill information. So click edit and answer these questions about how the other adults relate to the head of household, contact information for the other adult members, and whether they're working for pay or not. Saving that information, you can see that this is now completed and you're able to continue. Okay, great. So now we're answering questions about the children in the household. As you can see, both of the children of the household are listed, even though the head of household wasn't the parent or guardian of Anthony. These are just like basic kind of background questions, and once these are answered, there's not going to be any additional information collected on this child. However, if for some reason the head of household is uncomfortable answering these questions, there is a prefer not to answer option for each of these questions. So yeah, there's questions about the relationship, childcare, school grade, if they're in school. There's a list of all the schools in the Cuyahoga area. It's a lot of schools. They're listed alphabetically, but you can also like search for schools. So there's that option. And then if you can't find the school or it's not listed, you can select other and type in the school. There's questions, more educational questions, some medical questions. So you're going through these questions for each child with head of household. So we'll do it for Linda. And if you accidentally skip a question, the tool is going to prompt you to provide an answer. So again, there's always a prefer not to answer if the household doesn't want to answer it, but each question is required to have an answer selected. Okay, once this information is filled out, you can click the continue button. And now we're at the baseline information form summary page. Similar to the household roster summary page, it shows everything that's been entered. And if you need to edit any answers, you can do so with the blue edit button. Then you're ready to submit the BIF, baseline information form, and move on to the baseline survey. But before I do so, are there any questions about the baseline information form? Okay.
Yeah, but we have been referring to it as the BIF.
The BIF.
Thanks for reinforcing that.
Yep. So if people ask what is the BIF, baseline information form.
Sure.
So it's referred to as kind of both in the tool. Okay, so once you submit the BIF, you're either able to continue to the baseline survey or go back to the dashboard if for any reason the enrollment is paused. But usually in an in-person enrollment, you're just going to want to continue to the baseline survey directly. So continuing to the baseline survey, you select where the baseline survey will be taken. So if it's in person, you'll select in person. If the enrollment's happening remotely and you want the link to be sent to the head of household, you select remote. And if the baseline survey is being completed on paper, you'll select paper. So I'll select in person, and we can see that a link has been generated for the baseline survey. So at this point, PHA staff can either just open the link directly and provide the device to the head of household to self-administer the baseline survey, or if you have a tablet or the head of household has a phone they'd rather complete it on, you can use this QR code, but probably the easiest way is just to open up this link and provide the device to the head of household to complete the baseline survey, which from our pre-testing, it usually takes around 30 minutes for head of household complete. So you can just, leave the room or just tell the head of household to let you know when they've completed the survey. So similar to the consent forms, the head of household can toggle between English and Spanish using this drop down. And also there are audio files attached to every question and these statements. So if you click the blue button,
Thank you for taking the time to fill out the survey.
you'll get the audio for the statements or the questions. Each question is required to be answered, but again, there's a prefer not to answer option for each question. You can see that there's a progress bar at the bottom just to give a sense of how many questions or how far along you are in the survey. Not going to do the full survey now.
So does that audio also go through the response options?
Yes.
Or just question? Okay.
So I don't know
Question
if you can hear
5.
this, but
Which of the following statement best describes how satisfied you are with your current neighborhood? Very satisfied, somewhat satisfied.
could you hear that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought I shared it. Yeah, so it goes through each response option.
Does it read in Spanish as well when you toggle
It does. So when you go to Spanish, then should
¿Qué tan seguras son
Yeah.
las calles cercanas a su vivienda?
The vivienda, that's the only word I
so it does toggle between English and Spanish, the audio.
Did it sing louder in Spanish or was that my imagination?
It was louder.
Okay. Any questions about the baseline survey? Okay. I'm going to go now to describing remote an enrollment procedure. So let's say we are the head of household is not in the room with the PHA staff. They're either somewhere else on a video call or something of that nature, and but the head of household does have internet connection, so they're able to receive links to consent forms and baseline survey. Then we'll be clicking the remote option. So I'm just going to use a different example. Halle Berry, going to continue the enrollment for her. Head of household consent form has already been done, but the remote process just works the same for all the consent forms. So if I click on remote for parent guardian permission form, you can see that the link was sent to the head of household email. And the link is also provided for the PHA staff. So in case, they can't access it and you need to send it through another method, that link is provided. And also you can open the link to read through the form with the head of household as they pull it up on their own device. So again, this is what the head of household will see. Same thing as what you see. You can see here again. See, there's 2 children listed, and you can provide consent
All right,
for each one.
I have a question, Will.
Yep.
So let's assume that the head of household is doing this on their own remotely somewhere else, and a couple of days later, they contact us, like that they're having trouble. How do we get back here to help them?
Yeah, good question. So yeah, ideally it's completed all at once, but let's say, you get to the parent guardian permission and they're like, I need to take some more time to think about this. So they can do that. That's within their right. And once if they have any questions, they'll have the information to contact you or the study team. And once they decide to sign it, you just go back to that head of household, and you can see that they're in the consent form stage. Click continue enrollment, and you'll get back to that same screen. So once the consent form is sent the first time, you see that there's like an option to resend the link. So if like the family loses the link or something, you can resend it again remotely. And then once they complete it, if you continue, you'll see, nothing has been complete. But once they complete it, whether it be 1 or 2 days later, the tool actually automatically sends a reminder every 2 days for the period, that the head of household or parent permission form remains incomplete. So once they complete the permission form, then you'll see if you say they do it on their own, but once they complete it, you'll hit continue enrollment and get to this consent review screen where you can see that it was completed. So does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, great. Yeah, and so then at this point you can add another adult consent form. So, likely this will be done remotely as well. And the head of household will get the email to that other adult consent form to forward to the other adult in the household. The reason being, we want the head of household to be the one kind of dictating that communication, because they're the ones, who attended that, group enrollment session and know the most about the study. So they're going to be the ones forwarding the email to the other adults. So let's see if I can, I'll pull up an example here of what that looks like. So once this email is sent, here's an example: community choice demonstration consent form for other adult. Please forward this email to other adult too, and it gives you, it'll give you a link to that intro community choice demonstration video, give you a number to contact the PHA with any questions, and then a link to that consent form. So once that's done, oops, I don't know why that happened. Where are we? Yeah, once that's done, you can continue, and then it'll show up as completed when it's complete. So the other adult consent form looks, we already reviewed what it looks like, very similar to that of household. And then the other adult can agree or not to participate in the study. And then you're able to finish consents. And then we get to the baseline information form, which is again completed similarly in a remote setting. You just ask the head of household those questions. Okay, so remote baseline survey, pretty similar to the other baseline survey, where I'll use this example. Maggie Johnson. You click remote and it generates an email to the, or in this case, it's a text, but if there was an email address provided, it would send an email with the link to the baseline survey. And once the baseline survey has been completed, you can go back to the dashboard, and the enrollment step will show random assignment to indicate that the baseline survey has been completed. So I want to also touch on what happens if a family, kind of becomes inactive at any point. So, say you send the baseline survey, they're not completing it, and it's been a few, you've like repeatedly contacted them, and you want just to mark them as inactive in the tool so they're not showing up in this pending tab and kind of cluttering things. So you would contact the CCD study team help desk. That number is in the user guide and also the slides that I'll share. And then we as a study team can mark the household as inactive. And once the household is marked as inactive, they will appear within the inactive tab. So you can see that, this person was stuck on the consent form stage and marked as inactive. If they, engage with the enrollment process again, you can always click this button to make the household active again. But this is just to kind of separate those households that have a stalled enrollment from households that have, they're kind of more actively enrolling. After 31 days, if the head of household is still inactive, they'll be moved to the soft deleted table. And folks that also do not consent to the study, so either say no to the head of household consent form or the parental permission form, those head of household records would be moved to the soft deleted table. Okay. So now I wanted to go over the paper procedures. So we're gonna use the example of Frank paper here and go through the, oops, what's going on? Oh, it's in the BIF. Okay, that's fine. Let us start a new record here so we can show that. Oh, I also wanted to, I can use this opportunity to show some duplicate checks. So if someone has the same name, which is entirely possible in a 5-year, enrollment period, and you go to enroll that person, you'll see this didn't show up as a duplicate check. Wonder why. Usually it does. If you enter the same social security number as someone else, this could happen if someone is enrolled in the study. Maybe they were randomly assigned to the control group and they come back a couple years later. Either they forget that they enrolled in the study or they want a different result. If you try to enroll them again, you'll see that you know, this duplicate check saying that that the below records were found with the same values. And it's not going to let you enroll someone with the same social security number. But we'll do another example. John, fill this out quickly so we can get to the paper consent example. 0, other adults. Okay, so now we're at the head of household informed consent. So let's say that this person doesn't have access. It's not an in-person enrollment. Maybe you're on the phone with this person, but they don't have access to the internet, or they need to do the consent forms in a language other than English and Spanish and are doing it on paper. Whatever the case may be, if the consent forms are done on paper, you select paper, and the tool will prompt you to, confirm that paper consent has been given. So in order to move on from this screen, you have to have a verbal confirmation from the head of household that the head of household consent form has been signed and the head of household agrees to be a part of the CCD study. If you don't have that confirmation, you can't move on with the enrollment. But if it's, the consent form was done on paper, the head of household states that they've completed that consent, you can, and they agree to be a part of the study, you can hit yes and click save and continue. Then you'll get to the review screen where the consent has been given. Nothing shows up in the download consent form because the consent form was done on paper and not in the tool. So you can continue to parent consent. Again, selecting paper, the same questions are answered or asked whether the head of household has stated that the parent guardian permission form has been signed and they have given permission for at least one child to participate. Clicking yes, save and continue. And you're able to finish consents there and move on to the baseline information form, which will likely be collected, the information will be collected over the phone. In the case where the baseline information form is also completed over paper, they will have to drop off that paper or mail the paper, and then you'll enter the baseline information form directly into the tool from the paper before moving on. Okay, any questions about the paper consent procedures and how that looks in the tool right now? Okay. So last thing I wanted to demonstrate is what the paper baseline survey looks like. So continuing enrollment for Maggie Johnson, who's on the baseline survey stage, we're gonna select paper for where the baseline survey will be taken. And a link is generated for the paper survey. So this is the link that you, PHA staff, will use to fill out the survey based on the answers that's given on paper. So if you reach the stage in the enrollment and the household is now going to complete the baseline survey on paper, the enrollment is paused until the head of household either mails or drops off all of the consent forms, as well as the baseline survey completed on paper. So once you confirm you have all of those consent forms, you have the baseline information form completed and the baseline survey on paper, then you can go into this link and complete the baseline survey on paper. And I don't know why this isn't working. I don't know why it's glitching today. It might be because we have a number of people who have touched it. Let's see. Oops. But regardless, okay, I'm not sure why that's not working, but usually it'll just pull up the baseline survey like it was here. If I'll just note that, if for some reason the head of household or you close out of the baseline survey while it's still in progress, once you continue the baseline survey at another time, it'll save those answers and pull up the baseline survey wherever you last left off. So
I know you're going to get to this in a bit, Will, but let me just say, if when you're using the tool, something goes wrong and it's not going right, yeah, please contact the help desk and we will try and figure it out as soon as we can. So Will's going to do that. But in a situation like this, yeah, please contact the help desk.
So again, right now I'm filling out the survey based on the answers provided on paper. Otherwise, you as PHA staff are not going to ever see the answers given for the baseline survey. It's a self-administered survey if it's done in person or remotely. And once the baseline survey is completed, we'll see that the head of household is shown a text box field to provide any additional detail for the responses. This is optional, only optional question on the survey. And once hit save and continue, you'll see a thank you screen, and the head of household is told that the PHA staff member will provide the letter and information about which of the study groups head of household was placed in, and also the incentive. So once the baseline survey is complete, going back to the household enrollments table, again, I hit home, continue enrollments. You can find that the head of household that just completed the baseline survey is now in the random assignment stage, right? So any family in the random assignment stage, once you click continue enrollment, you get to the random assignment page where you'll just see simply the head of household name, their address, and the button to assign the household, randomly assign the household. So clicking on randomly assign, you'll see that the household Bob Hope was randomly assigned to the CMRS group. If it was the control group, that would read control there. And it's just another opportunity to remind the head of household that the random assignment is done by a computer. You all as PHA staff have no say in what group the head of household is randomly assigned to. So once that's done, you can continue to the family information screen, which gives you an overview of all the information about the enrollment. So we have the head of household name, the PHA number, that tool generated study ID I mentioned, the address, the random assignment group, consent status. Again, completed means all the other adult consent forms have been signed, which we can see here that Dolores, the only other adult, has completed the consent form. And the timestamps for when each of these enrollment steps have been completed. So the household roster, BIF, baseline survey, link sent, completed, and when the random assignment was completed. And you're able to see a summary of the household roster information as well. So, and overview of all the members of the household. So I want to, yep.
I might be getting ahead. So is this the page that we would print? Would we print this page out for them so they'd know where they'd been assigned?
Not this page exactly. I think the random assignment letter is a separate document. There's a template and you can pre-print it and just fill out the head of household name and random assignment group once that's known from this page. Yeah, the more procedures will be coming available for that. But what you can do from this page is print out the all the consent forms, so we can see. I don't know why there's 2 consent forms. I think multiple people were working in this, but usually there'd just be 1 consent form per person, and you can view that consent form and print them out and provide that to the head of household if it's in person, or if it's remote, you'll mail it to the head of household. So going to another example of a completed consent. These are all, that's pending, but let's see. We can see, here, again, this CMRS group and all the consent forms that are available to view and print out.
Let me just add about that notification letter. We know it would be convenient if right after random assignment could use the tool to print out the notification letter, whether someone was assigned to the CMRS group or to the control group. So right now we don't yet have that in the tool, but it's one of the things we're considering adding to the tool. So right now you have to come outside the tool to do those notification letters.
Yeah. And so, yeah, let's pretend that Maggie Johnson's baseline survey was completed and Maggie was randomly assigned to a group. So if this was a completed enrollment, you can go in after the fact and see that there are pending consents. So Tom Johnson has not filled out the consent form. It's another adult in the household. So once enrollment is completed, you can go in and add a consent form for that other adult. Usually it'll be remote. I mean, if the other adult happens to come in person to the VHA, you can do it in person. Might be conducted on paper, but usually the other adult consent will just be taken remotely. Once you submit that, that link will be texted or emailed to the head of household. And once it is completed by the other adult, again, this can occur, at any time after the enrollment. The head of household will receive an email, I think once every week for 4 weeks, kind of reminding them to send this form to the other adult for them to complete. Once that happens, they will, show up in the consent review screen, saying that they have completed that, non-HOH other adult consent form, and the consent status will be changed to completed. Any questions about completed enrollments and adding other consent forms? Here's another example, but in the control group. So there's a number of other adults in the household that have yet to provide consent to the study. Okay. I think the last thing I wanted to talk about was once a family does enroll into the study, they do have the option to stop being in the study at any time. And so to do so, a study participant must contact the help desk phone number, which is provided in the consent form, to withdraw from the study. So the study team will field that call, find out the reason they want to withdraw, and withdraw them for the study. And then the study team will notify the PHA that the participant has withdrawn and mark the participant as withdrawn in the enrollment tool. So you won't be marking the participant as withdrawn, but you will be able to see in the withdrawn tab all of the households who have withdrawn. So you can see here, this example, April, March, completed enrollment, but this enrollment state is withdrawn. So this person will no longer kind of appear in the service tool, and services will no longer be provided, and information will no longer be collected about this household. And the reason why we have withdrawn, we're saving the information of people who withdrawn in the study is because, like I mentioned, if April, March tries to enroll in the study again, they've already been enrolled and randomly assigned, so they're not allowed to enroll in the study anew to try to get a new random assignment, but they are allowed to, call the study, and we re-enroll in the study in their same group. So those are all of the tabs. I think I explained all of the tabs. And I will pause again here for questions because we have finished with the live demonstration. I think I've shown all of the features in the tool as they currently stand. So any questions right now that are coming up?
I vote yes for the letter.
Okay, yes, thank you. Yeah, we will definitely consider that as a future change.
Thank you.
That's
It
helpful.
seems very straightforward. I'm sure once we get people actually in it, we'll come up with more questions.
Yeah.
It seems really straight.
It seems, yeah.
Yeah, I think it is not a big thing to add to the tool. It should be.
Yeah. Great. Okay. Well, yeah, the line is open to ask more questions, but I'm gonna go back to the presentation and cover some data security points. First I'll talk a little bit more about paper form. So again, there will be times when you may need to use paper form, such as when internet connectivity isn't feasible for the participant, if their primary language is not English or Spanish, or maybe they have accommodations for visual or hearing impairments that they cannot use the tool online. And a really important thing to do when scheduling that individual enrollment session is to determine whether first off, whether there's an adult who lives in the household that is the parent or guardian of at least one of the children in the household. If that is not the case, there are no adults in the household that are parent or guardian of at least one child in the household, that household is not able to enroll in the study. Can determine what the family's preferred language is, whether the family needs any accommodations for visual or hearing impairments, and whether the family has access to the internet in order to do remote enrollments. And so before the individual enrollment session, if paper is required, please make sure that the paper materials are sent or made available to the family in advance of the meeting. And all those materials would be in their preferred language. And then the PHA will need to ship signed copies of the paper consent forms to APT. We are also looking into the ability for PHAs to upload securely the consent forms directly into the tool to avoid that shipping. But right now, those shipping procedures are described in the PHA recruitment and enrollment manual. Okay, so just wanted to talk about all the resources available to help you all use the enrollment tool. So I sent out a draft version of the user guide. There'll be a final version sent out later. His user guide is, a great reference. It has all of the steps of enrollment, all of the scenarios, screenshots of the tool. It can be used to answer questions about what is included in the tool and how to use its features. But there are also some other resources, including some training videos that we'll send out later. They're kind of snippets of live demonstrations, so kind of similar to what I did today, screen shares with narration. There's going to be office hours and FAQs ongoing throughout the pilot period, as well as the study help desk, which has an email and phone number. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. So here's a screenshot of the just partial table contents of the user guide. It's a lengthy document. It's a great resource. Here's kind of what it looks like. Has some screenshots of the tool and walks you through using the tool step by step. Enrollment tool video series contains a series of videos that range in length depending on the topic. So that's another good resource. Starting the week of August 8th, our study team will begin holding office hour sessions twice a week to answer questions from PHAs and mobility services staff about using both the tools, and 30 minutes of each session will be dedicated to the enrollment tool. And based on questions raised during these live training sessions and these regular office hours, we'll create a continuously updated enrollment tool FAQ document, and we might also update the enrollment tool user guide to address these questions. Okay, tool troubleshooting. Should the enrollment tool stop working for any reason, or if you have any questions about using the enrollment tool, you may contact the CCD Study Help Desk by email or phone. So you can see the email address or the toll-free number here. It's also listed in the user guide. And in situations where your call is not answered live, the help desk will respond as soon as possible for urgent matters and within 1 business day for non-urgent matters. So here's a kind of a decision tree to help you figure out who to contact or what resource to consult if you have a question or comment or issue with the tool. So if something is broken or it's not working as it should, that is an urgent issue, and we want you to contact the help desk by email or phone, and we'll get back to you ASAP with an answer or solution. If you have a non-urgent question, like more just a process question or how things work, we ask you to, you can consult the user guide, the training videos, the FAQs first, and if you still can't find an answer to your question, then you can attend office hours or contact the help desk, and we'll help you. And finally, if you have a comment or suggestion to improve the tool, we really want to hear that. We want to make this tool as user-friendly as possible to help you do your job, and you can either email the comment or suggestion to the help desk or attend office hours to discuss your comment. So a little bit more on that. Your feedback is very important to us. So a great way to share your feedback for improvements is to email the study help desk at ccdstudy@aptosoc.com. You may also share suggestions with your site liaison during check-in calls, and the study team will be providing additional opportunities for feedback through listening sessions throughout the pilot period. And HUD has asked us to let you know that we are the, apt, and the CCD study email is the main contact for questions or feedback regarding the enrollment tool. We ask that you do not contact First Pick or HUD with those questions, because we are the ones best positioned to answer those questions specifically regarding the enrollment tool. Okay, covered a lot of information. Thank you for your attention, and I will open it up for any last questions folks have.
I don't have anything. I think that was pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like, I don't want to say easy, but like,
User-friendly?
yeah.
Very user-friendly.
Like, we should be able to follow along, and I can't foresee any hiccups, like, right this second.
Just go back, yeah. I think it seems very thoughtfully conceived.
Right.
Yes, well.
Great.
Danny.
We'd love to hear that.
Great job.
Thank you.
We've tried.
We tried, and we will, once you have more time to, you'll have your practice later today, and you'll be practicing before the launch. Just let us know if things come up, and we'll be using those office hours to do more mini trainings, answer questions, and hear your feedback to continue making this tool as user-friendly as possible. But
I guess one final question I had was, if you were going to embed the random assignment notification letter within the enrollment tool, would that be then the only place that would be, you'd have to say if it was an existing voucher family or a waiting list family, since that letter is slightly different, and everything else is consistently the same, is that right?
The first question on the household roster has you select whether it's an existing voucher or wait list, because the consent forms are slightly different.
Oh,
So
that's
the
right.
tool automatically customizes which consent form to show. So in theory, we should also be able to customize which RA letter to generate. If if we get both those options, we can generate
So it
that.
would be
That shouldn't
automatic,
too
just
much of
like
an
that,
issue.
though. You wouldn't
Yeah.
actually select anything, because it would be
Right.
vetted from kind of the navigation you had up to that point. I see. Okay.
Correct.
Wonderful. I think that's it.
All right.
We're going to practice.
Sounds good.
Great.
Okay, I'll stop recording. I'll send out these slides and the recording later.